All right, here we go again on our own, down the only road we've ever known. Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video with Denny, your host here in the Jeep Patriot. Speaking of patriotism and the cooler weather today, I thought I'd make a video about Canada and life in this country. It is, cooled down, which is typical here, especially in Alberta. There's a saying here that some of you may know, and that's, if you don't like the weather in Alberta, just wait 10 minutes and it may turn in your favor or turn in the opposite direction. Depends on the way the coin flips or the cookie crumbles, as luck would have it. So yeah, you just never know. Summers here are fantastic. They can get hot. It's kind of nice because they can cool down a little bit. Some days you get some reprieve, unlike down in Vegas or Southern California or something like that, or Florida, where it's hot and humid for like 6 or 7 months straight. Not something us Canadians are used to or can even handle without climatizing for a few years. Sure, it's the same with people who come up here who maybe move up here from South America or even the southern US that come to Canada. It takes some getting used to. You go from plus 30 degrees Celsius to minus 30 degrees. Yeah, so basically, like, I don't know, Fahrenheit for Americans would be like, think about like the coldest Chicago ever gets, and then think about as like almost as hot as Vegas some days here. So a very drastic swing in temperatures in these parts where I live. But it's nice, you know, most of the time. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about Canada and the land of maple leafs. Kind of like the land of make-believe, Mr. Rogers. Now, what's interesting about that is people do make-believe a lot of things, and there are myths and exaggerations about this country, and I actually have a more nuanced perspective on living here and the country itself. It's not all negative and it's not all rosy and perfect here, that's for sure. But yeah, you gotta take the good with the bad, and I will try to give my opinion on, you know, what it's really like here, the reality of the situation, and you can agree or disagree. And it all depends on your perspective. You know, are you just someone that's hearing stuff online or watching videos about how great Canada is or how terrible it is? And usually things like YouTube or political commentators, which I'm not really, they will polarize the situation and the content to where, you know, if it's something that's constantly negative, it does attract attention, and the people that agree, they'll flock in high numbers, all the agreeable people, and the people that don't agree will just stay away anyway. So by me being kind of honest about how I feel and what my experience is, it's not going to be very polarizing. It's maybe not the best strategy if you want to get views or monetize or something like that. It's just me speaking what I'm seeing and how I feel personally based on my experience and based on my values and my upbringing and my background. So yeah, I touched on the weather a little bit, and you know, the land of make believe. That the myths that you hear is like that it's always cold here, and that's simply not the case. It's actually very nice in the spring. It's not too hot, not too cold. In the summer it's warm, but you do get some kind of crazy swings, some anomalies where it's gets definitely below average. Like even in June it could get chilly, especially at night, or in August sometimes. Now it's late August and there can be little dips in temperature here and there, but for the most part it's fairly consistent. So no, we don't live in igloos, and it's not always cold here. You know, we're talking like the cold weather is like early November to late February, March. The extreme cold is possibly late November until early March. That's about your worst case scenario. So really you're looking at 3 months out of the year where potentially it can get to that ridiculous frigid frozen tundra where it's, you know, the minus 20 to 30, minus 35 wind chill. And it does happen. I mean, it's no lie, it's no joke. It's not for the faint of heart. Especially here in central Alberta where it can get really cold. Now a little bit further south where it's Calgary, and even south of that you're approaching Montana, you get Chinooks, you get a little bit of that warm Pacific air coming through, and that's actually been coming through, like even it's hitting us up here a little further north. Now the other myth is that here in the Edmonton metropolitan area, it's an area of about 1.5 million people. We've got the city of Edmonton and some surrounding municipalities, towns, and smaller cities. People call this northern Alberta, but geographically it's not really. It's like central and even slightly south. Like if you were to divide Alberta into half, if you put a line right through the middle, Edmonton would fall just on the southern hemisphere of it. So yeah, we're not northern Alberta. There is northern Alberta, and that's like Fort McMurray and a bunch of other places, the oil sands, a lot of heavy industry, forestry, mining, a lot of stuff going on, and those areas are growing as well. People are migrating there for jobs and stuff. So yeah, that's another area, and that does get even colder. That's can get pretty brutal up there, and there's a lot of open space, I guess you can say, a lot of uninhabited land. And the thing about Canada also is that it's like enormous in land area. Like it's super huge. It's actually quite amazing how much uninhabited land, especially to the north. Like most of the population areas are probably within 1 or 2 hours drive of the United States border. So there's not a lot of people that live in northern Canada. And you have the Arctic, which I think most of it is Canada. I don't know if some of it's Russia or some of it's neutral or whatever. I don't know. How that all, Greenland, I guess. Don't know much about what's going on in the Arctic, but that's absolutely massive. Yeah, the square mileage of Canada is ridiculous. It's bigger than the US, and I think it's like the second or third largest country in just square mileage. You go from the west coast, like Vancouver, or even further west of that is Vancouver Island in the city of Victoria. And from there all the way to the Atlantic coast, St. John's, Newfoundland, I think it's like a 6 or 6.5 hour flight, which is insane. Like, and if you were to drive, I guess it would be, oh, how long is that? Like 7 days or something it would take you to drive there. I know from here in Edmonton to Toronto, it's, even if you're doing quick pace, it's like 2.5 days, almost 3 days of driving, just because you got to go through the Great Lakes, and Ontario is quite far south. Toronto, I think, is almost the same, was it longitude, latitude, whatever it is, as some of America. Like, I know there's a place called Windsor, Ontario, and that's a couple hours south of Toronto, and that is actually south of Detroit. Like, Detroit's further north than Windsor, Ontario. So it's interesting how on the east side Canada and the US kind of overlap each other. Some of America is further north and some of Canada is further south. So that's interesting. A lot of people don't know that. They just assume all of Canada is north of the US, and that's simply not the case if you look at maps, or if you're a bit of a geography nerd like myself. And that I've always found fascinating once I've found that out. And it's just a huge place. There's a lot of space in between. And some people find that to be advantageous, or they prefer that. With America, I've noticed, like, because I've driven through a lot of it. I've gone through Interstate 15, and I've driven to California. I've driven, Southern California, and then up through Nevada, and then I drove a bit in Texas, and then when I flew to New York, I remember, taking the bus around to different places. And what's fascinating about that, and kind of the difference with the United States and Canada, is when you're driving through the States, it's like every 10 or 15 minutes down the interstate or whatever highway, unless you're like way in the middle, like in no man's land in like Wyoming or certain parts of Texas where it is empty, like there's nothing but desert or forest for an hour or two, whatever. For the most part, you're just going from like place to place, and it's all developed up the highways and interstates. I remember driving through the I-5, like coming from California through Oregon, Washington. It's just like city after city after town, and then maybe a smaller town, and then maybe 20 minutes, half hour of nothing, mountains, trees, and then boom, there's another town, and then that's like a suburb of a bigger city, and then boom, all of a sudden you're in the Seattle area. Kind of same thing with Portland. There's like 3 cities, and then there's Portland, and not much in between. California, definitely just traffic the whole way. Hours and hours of just strip malls and industrial buildings, factories, and apartments, all that stuff, just as far as the eye can see. Canada, it's a little bit different. Unless you're in like the Toronto area, then it's kind of similar. Just kind of never ending strip malls and development and industrial buildings. We get a little bit of that here in Calgary and Edmonton. It is growing. I mean, it's definitely not what it was 20-25 years ago. It's sprawled out like crazy, and they're always building something. So now when you drive south where, like, for example, our airport is about half an hour south of the city. And I remember leaving the city limits, and it would be a good 20 minutes on the highway before you saw anything. And then there was like a couple buildings that kind of had to do with the airport development, and then there's just the airport, and there's nothing in between. Now it's pretty much Edmonton and the airport are one thing. It's just all developed all the way down. Hotels, office buildings, malls, yeah, like big strip malls, and apartments, townhouses, all that shit, and more roads and more traffic and pedestrians, all that stuff. So it's almost kind of becoming Americanized a little bit, but on a smaller scale. Obviously, Canada is 40 million people. United States is anywhere but between 350 and 370, depending who you ask, depending how many people are unreported. So yeah, much bigger. I mean, even if you took 300, yeah, like if you took 300 million people out of the States, they would still have as many as Canada, if not more. So it's quite a contrast in terms of population. Canada is a big piece of land with a relatively small population. It's what some people don't know either. They do these stupid exaggerations like, oh, there's only like 10 million people in the whole country. It's like, no, you're a little bit off on that. Or they'll just be totally clueless, and you ask them, what's the population of Canada? And they'll be like, I don't know, 100 million. That's not right either. Now, aside from all that, there's the other issues like cultural and, you know, just what it's like living here, and the economics and all that. That's also a nuanced thing, because my complaints would be we pay too much in taxes here. It'd be nice to get that a little bit lower so we can keep a little bit more of our money. Kind of the same problem in the States, which is trying to be rectified at least a little bit with trying to find ways to cut waste from the budget, and yeah, wasteful spending and frivolous spending, where the deficits and debts are going up and up, and inflation, just like America, we deal with that. Now, I'm not sure, you know, some say it's worse than the States. I don't know about that. I know it's something that's been going on for a few years here, and it sucks. It is a real thing. Groceries, rent, all that is hurting people here, that's for sure. Wages are not keeping up with inflation, and people are struggling, definitely. It's not as prosperous as it felt years ago, especially here in Alberta, where the economy's always been fairly strong, and it still is. Compared, we are still the sugar daddy of the country. Some may disagree, but I think it is what it is. This is the energy sector. This is the resource powerhouse. And we deal with a lot of, you know, conflict with the eastern side of the country, where all the government is. That's where the federal government is based. That's where Ottawa is, and that's where the Liberal Party is in power. And there's often a clash between the needs and the what do you call it, the needs and the agenda of Alberta clashes with the agenda and philosophy of Ottawa. And luckily we do have a good premier here. Her name is Danielle Smith. She's conservative. The Conservative Party is in power provincially here in Alberta. And we've always been a little more free than some of the other provinces. We are taxed a little bit lower. We don't have a provincial sales tax. And we have a little bit more economic freedom, a little bit of a lower corporate tax. So it's a little bit easier to start businesses here. And yeah, that's what's driving a lot of migration and population into this province. Which brings me to the point of not all Canada is the same. You see these generalizations and people making YouTube videos about, oh, Canada is this and that, and it's this dystopia and this on the verge of economic collapse. The homelessness and just the dread and collapse of Canada. Canada's finished and Canada's dead and all this stuff. Well, it depends where you're at. Not all Canada's the same culturally and economically. I explained a little bit about what Alberta is. And yeah, different culturally. I mean, you go to one coast, the west coast, Vancouver, and that's very much a liberal place. It's similar to your San Francisco, your Seattle. The local governments there are very progressive, and they are very much into climate change and those type of policies which affect people differently. And those places just happen to have a higher rate of homelessness, but also it's a lot more expensive. Housing in Vancouver compared to Edmonton is night and day. I mean, in Edmonton, a one-bedroom apartment may cost you $1,100 to $1,200 a month. That same square footage apartment in Vancouver is like $2,000, maybe $2,200, something like that. So that's driving some people out of there. It's pricing some people out of the market. And now a lot of younger people or certain type of progressive people want to live in these cosmopolitan cities that are very progressive and crowded, very busy and bustling, and have like 10 different sushi restaurants within a walking distance. I don't really care about that stuff. I mean, our town here is pretty good. We have a lot of restaurants, and especially the area I live is fairly gentrified, and it's got a blend of progressive values and more traditional. Edmonton's a good place to raise a family. The housing is cheaper to buy and to rent. You can get a nice size house here for about half the price you can in Toronto or Vancouver. And yeah, it's got all the amenities you could think of, the consumer choice up the ass, anything you could want and more. So I don't really see what the problem is. But yes, I mean, some people just, want to live in a Toronto or a Vancouver or one of these more renowned and dynamic places. But, Edmonton's maybe not quite as exciting, but it still has a lot going on and a lot going for it, and it's getting better and it's growing, and people are discovering not just Edmonton, but Calgary and other parts as well. More of the prairie provinces, Winnipeg, Saskatoon. These are all decent places to live where the cost of living is lower. And that's not to say that inflation's still not a problem. It still is, and people struggle everywhere across the board, but it is nuanced. It is a little bit different depending on where in Canada you live, and different values too. I mean, the people that live in Vancouver are not the same types you find in St. John, Newfoundland, or in Fort McMurray, Alberta, or Brandon, Manitoba. These are all different types of people, places, you know, culturally and ethnically. I mean, you go to Toronto and it's like, you know, if you look like me, you're about half the population, if not less. It's completely, it's all ethnic. It's all, you know, they say diversity, but it's not that diverse. It's less and less people like me is all I could say about that. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, depending where you're at, you know, Canada's not just one thing. It's not just all Canadians are the same. It's varies quite a bit. It's like the US too, right? I mean, you go to like South Beach, Miami, Florida, or something like that, where everybody's Cuban or African American or Hispanic, and the white people are, you know, Jewish and older. So you got that kind of mix going on, or a lot of rich douchebaggery going on in these places. And then you compare that to, I don't know, Billings, Montana, and what the people are like there, what the culture is like there, or like a small town in Texas compared to like downtown Los Angeles. I mean, it's a different vibe, it's a different economy, different culture, different people, ethnically probably different. Canada's very much the same way, you know. There's towns that are 90% white, and there's places that are, you know, 30% white. It's all depends. And it's kind of like, it's kind of cool. Like, that's one good thing about Canada. You can move around, freedom of movement around, you know, just like in the States, you can move states and it's not that big of a deal. You just have to get a new ID, and it's not a big deal at all. Freely travel through. And yeah, so depending what industry you're in, if you're maybe a software engineer or a lawyer that's making good money and you want to live in a fancier place, in a more international kind of city, you could live in Toronto if you don't mind the crowds and the crazy ass traffic. You could do that if you can afford it. Or if you're more of a blue collar type like myself that just want to work in the trades and want some cheaper housing and cheaper cost of living, and you want to go out and get a beer for $6 instead of going out for a beer and paying $11, you know, you could live in a place like Red Deer, Alberta, or Edmonton, suburbs of Edmonton, and you'll do just fine. There's schools everywhere, good place to raise kids. You got parks, you got open space. We have our issues with crime in certain areas, but for the most part, it's a safe city in terms of violent crime. You are going to get the theft and the social disorder in the downtown areas, especially the east side. That's all shit that, you know, bugs me, that I wish our leadership would do more of. And that's one of the shitty things about Canada, but that's like everywhere, you know. It's a lot worse in San Francisco or Seattle or LA, New York, Chicago. Way worse than what's going on in any Canadian city. We don't have the even near the amount of gang violence. Outside of Toronto, it's not very prevalent at all. We have our kind of brown on brown violence in Alberta, but it's on a much smaller scale. But yeah, that's another thing that bothers me. I wish, you know, people that immigrate here, the problem is they bring their BS here, their sectarian violence and their religious violence to this country, and that's just unacceptable. You know, our leadership has failed miserably in vetting people and trying to get the good people to come here, which I'm not against immigration, but I want it to be done the legal way and just not willy-nilly and too much too soon. That's what's happened here. It's what some people would say is destroying the country is just this huge, just rapid influx of people from the third world. Now, we are considered a first world country. We do have it good here compared to the vast majorities of the countries globally. You know, we have a fairly high standard of living, even though we are taxed high. We have decent health care. It's not perfect, but I don't know if you want to compare that to the health care they have in the Democratic Republic of Congo or Kenya or Nigeria or something like that. I'm sure we're doing well, and that's why a lot of people from Africa are moving here. You know, I don't blame them. I mean, God bless them for getting out of that situation. I know I would never want to live in sub-Saharan Africa or even West Africa, even these places that are more developed that are still pretty bad, like 80% poverty, and you know, people, some of these places are run by warlords and very easily get gunned down and killed for something very stupid, like a little bit of cash, or just being in the wrong tribe can get you killed. So I understand the fleeing, you know, I mean, I get it, but it's also up to our leaders to look out for the citizens here and ensure the highest quality of life possible, because we do work hard, we do pay taxes, and we do follow the laws. We are law-abiding citizens. We're trying to do what's right for our communities, and to be punished for it in somewhat of a way by just importing tons and tons of people, a lot of which don't assimilate to the country quickly, or if at all. And there's a lot of disrespect for our laws and our norms and traditions that, you know, I don't like. I'm not from Canada originally, but I did come here as a toddler. I'm from Croatia. Come from that European mentality, that hard work. My family goes back generations of blue collar, and even worse, impoverished. If I go back to grandparents, great grandparents. So that lineage, we've always been, you know, hardworking, but following the rules and traditions. And when my parents came here, it wasn't easy. This was back in the early 80s when we had a lot stricter immigration laws. And Canada at that time was about 88 or 89% Caucasian. Yeah, and only like 11-12% ethnic, like brown, black, Asian, whatever. So it's changed quite a bit. Now it's like down to maybe 62% or something. It's a huge difference just in my lifetime, just ethnically what's happened. And that's very quickly, you know, like 20-30 years. That's not a long stretch of time. That's like one generation of people that has to adapt to totally different demographics. Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people just don't respect Canada, and they're just here for the benefits, the perks, and they don't have a sense of loyalty. You know, a lot of these people, they get whatever money they get here, whether it's from programs or even if they start working. A lot of that just gets sent back to relatives in other countries, Africa, the Philippines, Central America, wherever these people come from. And I mean, God bless and kudos to the people that start businesses and try to live the dream. The American dream is similar to what the Canadian dream is, to make it here and do well and accumulate some wealth, even though that's getting harder and harder with inflation and taxes and poor leadership. But we still have that aspect of people that want to dream big, and Canada is a place that you should be able to do that. We have the resources and the amenities and the opportunities, and if the government could just get out of the way a little bit, let us keep a little more of our money so we can invest in ourselves, that would make Canada even better. But my view is nuanced on that. It's like I say, it's not great. There's room for improvement, and it's gone in a sideways direction here, and especially the past 10 years with the leadership. Excuse me. And I just am doing my best. I'm trying to live the dream by working for myself and trying to make it as a single white man with no family, bachelor here. So yeah, my family came here and we had to assimilate very quickly. They didn't speak English, but they learned quickly. And I had to take English second language. But by the time I was 7, I was good to go and didn't look back since then. And I started playing hockey shortly after. I became a Canadian citizen, and I was proud of that and proud to be Canadian. So were a lot of people that were immigrating at the time that were from India and places like that. But it's a different time too. Like the people that were coming over then, they seemed to be a little more appreciative and had a little more excitement and gratitude about being here, because it was harder to come here. Now that it's like super easy, and there's been a little bit decline in character and morals, people are just here just to, they just come here because it's, I guess better than where they're from, and there's more opportunities. But they don't seem that grateful, and a lot of them don't work very hard, or they don't have like that respect. They don't really care about Canada. Like we don't have a strong sense of patriotism or we're not nationalistic at all. We don't have a Pledge of Allegiance like they do in America. We don't wave the flag very much here. We have like our little Canada Day fireworks, and that's about it. And yeah, people just don't care. Like the ones that have come here the last 10 years, they just get their Uber job or their food delivery job or driving a taxi or whatever, or just living off government, or just they do that chain migration where they come here and get temporary status, and then they just bring all their family members over. And I think they get subsidized housing or whatever, or they just get help from some of their other people in their community, whether it's Somali community or something. They all help each other out. And that's kind of crazy too, because Canada's supposed to be this one nation that's all like integrated. We're all in this together, and we all kind of come together as like a melting pot. And that just doesn't happen. Like people come here and they just self-segregate. There's not strong communities that are mixed, right? It's like there's an area here that's like a couple city blocks. It's like all Somalis and people from Sudan and stuff like that. And they all kind of have their own little food stores and delis and restaurants and stuff. And it's all them. You don't see like Polish and Italian and East Indian people all as patrons in these places. You don't see Ukrainians in the same community as hall in an event as, you know, some Somali event they're having in the Somali Community Center. And yeah, there's a lot of people from Ukraine and Russia here too. And yeah, it's all in different cliques and different groups that congregate. And yeah, nobody really, it's not that people don't get along, we just kind of tolerate each other. That's about as good of a coexistence as you can imagine. Is just, we just don't like yell at each other and fight or anything. Canadians are very friendly and polite, and that's definitely a myth that's or that's a sorry, not a myth, it's a stereotype that's real. Sometimes it's exaggerated, like, you know, everyone in Canada is all friendly and opens the door for you. That's not true. We do have douchebags here too, but overall, yeah, it's kind of a calmer energy, a little bit of a different vibe, a little bit slower pace compared to the US. A lot of things are similar. I mean, you go into a 7-Eleven, it's all the same shit, right? Or we have Costco and Safeway and Walmart and all that stuff, and that's all kind of the same, but there's just a little bit of a different energy. You know, we don't have like the African American community here, and that's like kind of a different group that only exists in the States. And you know, that's something that as a Canadian, when you visit there, it's different. That's kind of your culture shock, especially you go to the hood and you see how people are there. And yeah, we just don't have that like hood culture in every city like they do in the States, where people have guns and stuff. Guns, yeah, that's another thing. You could look at that as a good thing or a bad thing. The vast majority of Canadians are not walking around with guns. They're illegal for the most part. But the other misconception is that like Canadians don't have guns at all, or that like we have a non-gun culture. That's not true. Like, we actually have a fairly strong gun culture, but it's more with hunting and sport shooting. And it's more like people in the suburbs and in smaller towns that are into that. But yeah, you can own guns here. It's just a lot harder to get. There's more restrictions and paperwork and gun laws. There's a lot of laws for handguns especially, but they do exist. You can buy them with the right, go through the proper channels and stuff. So that myth of like you just can't have a gun in Canada or nobody likes guns here, that's simply not true. I don't actually mind guns. Like, I want to go to a shooting range one of these days, because actually one of the places I do the locks for, it's a indoor shooting range, and we have a few of them around, so obviously people enjoy it. And I want to take lessons one of these days when I get some time, maybe save up some cash. I don't think I'll ever buy a handgun, but it'd be nice to just learn how to shoot one, just so you know, just for that life experience. And maybe one day if I ever do need to get one, I can. So yeah, there's that. And actually Alberta here, provincially, yeah, I think guns are mostly federal stuff, but yeah, I don't know if they're trying to figure out some legislation to make it easier to have guns here in Alberta, but I'd have to research that. I don't know much about it. What else? What is Canada that we're, I guess the topic of freedom, you know, Canada is, there's also this other myth and another nuanced perspective I have is like Canada does have freedom. Is it as free as the United States? Probably not overall. You know, if you're looking at especially First and Second Amendment, I just mentioned guns, obviously much easier to get guns, so you can put that in the freedom column as a win for America. But then again, that could be a minus in the safety aspect. Canada could be looked at as a safer place. Now, I haven't lived in the US, so I don't know, but the general idea I get from what I know and what I've heard is that Canada is a slightly safer place to live, especially violent crime. So yeah, freedom is interesting. You know, we don't have like a constitution the same as the states do. We do, but it's like kind of squirrely. I don't really even understand it. It's we have a charter of rights and freedoms, and freedom of speech is in there, but there's these kind of things where the government can get involved in certain situations. I don't know, it gets tied up in a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, and I know some people have been in trouble for their speech, like certain things they've said, but then again, a lot of that ends up going through the Supreme Court of Canada, and more often than not, the people that were speaking that got in trouble end up coming out on the winning side. So free speech does end up, like I say, winning most of the time. With that said, you know, just speaking in general, I guess if I was in the States and an American, I would feel a little bit safer and a little more comfortable about saying certain things than I am here. There's this like extreme perspective and idea as well that like with Canada is very strict with like hate speech laws, and you can't say anything, you get thrown in prison and all that. I don't really think so. I think that's a little exaggerated. I know COVID was a different time. It was fairly dystopian here during the 2 COVID years. But then again, every province had a little bit of a different thing going on. Alberta, as I've mentioned before, a little bit on the safer or on the more freedom side. And yeah, in terms of that, slightly more freedom in the US, but is Canada like some sort of authoritarian, like dystopian nightmare? Absolutely not. There's a lot of people running around with maybe a little too much freedom. I see a lot of people getting away with shit and the cops just letting it happen. So I don't know what to say about that. And that's kind of thing that bugs me, is like, I wish we had more policing and better policing here. Too many crackheads still, and people causing a ruckus, and the riffraff and the property damage and crime. That shit's a little bit out of control. I wish we'd do a little better there, and that I'm definitely not proud of that. Definitely not making me a proud citizen of this country when I see that type of shit. But at least I'm in Alberta, and like I say, we are a bit more free here, and we do have it's weird, we have a conservative government and it's a bit more free. Now, yeah, like I say, we don't have the provincial sales tax, so we only pay 5%, which is the GST, which is a federal tax on goods and services. It's 5%. It was 7%. Now, back in 2011, or was it 2009, we had a conservative federal government, and the leader there actually slashed it from 7% to 5%. As with the Liberals before, they had it at 7%. So we were taxed even higher back, 15 years ago, whenever it was. And yeah, freedom, I don't know. Yeah, there's the whole weed thing. I guess in that way, Canada is more free. If you like weed, Canada's the place to be. We have some pretty loose drug laws. Even for like harder drugs, it's slap on the wrist a lot of times. You got to be trafficking or carrying a lot of it, or get caught multiple times to be really punished for drugs here. Now, what's interesting about weed and alcohol, The other thing where, you know, you can't look at Canada as a whole thing is like you go visit Ontario and they don't have the same liquor stores or the liquor laws like we do here in Alberta. In Alberta, everything's privatized, liquor and marijuana or cannabis. So anybody can open their own cannabis store or liquor store. You just gotta go through the there's regulations, but you have to apply for the licenses and that. But you can be an entrepreneur and do that here. As with in a lot of the other provinces, it's a lot harder. And the liquor stores in Ontario, for example, I think are all government run. So they have these like stupid laws where they close at 9 o'clock at night. So it's kind of stupid. If you want to buy hard alcohol, you have to buy it before 9. Otherwise, you have to get it like through some like weird, you know, black market thing, or I think you can still get beer in like some grocery stores, or there's beer stores. I'm not sure. Ontario's kind of silly liquor laws. Alberta, it's completely open. Like there's liquor stores everywhere. I think I have 4 of them within walking distance to my place, and I don't even need them. I don't buy a lot of alcohol for home. I do once in a while if I have guests over. Make sure I have a 6-pack, or sometimes I'll get a bottle of nice vodka or whiskey for Christmas to have at home. So I only go to the liquor store a couple times a year. But they're everywhere, and they're easy to open, and the laws state that you can be open till 2 o'clock in the morning, which is great. You know, a lot of people are looking to get some more refills on their booze late at night when they're having house parties. Here in Alberta, you can run out, get booze at 2 a.m. if you want, and it's all good. And most other provinces aren't like that. And the other difference is Alberta is 18 is the legal drinking age. Some provinces it's 19. In America it's 21. So is that another W in the Canadian column for freedom? I don't know, I guess you can say that. So that's another thing people forget, is like the drinking laws are different here. And overall, yeah, I'd say, you know, Canada's a fairly good place. It's not perfect. It depends what you like. If you like a lot of open space, if you like to get out of the city easy, you know, you live in a place like this, you drive half an hour from the city and you're in a pretty open, outdoorsy area, campgrounds all over the place, lakes, lots of fishing, tons of hiking, camping, just, you know, all the lake stuff you can do, boating. That's, Canada's fantastic. All the lakes, you know, there's thousands of them. I don't even know. It's just insane the amount of lakes. We have the Rocky Mountains, which is some of the most beautiful scenery, geography, probably in the world. Now I know Colorado has the Rockies as well, but from what I know, it's not quite the same. There is something special about the Canadian Rockies. It's a little more majestic. The mountains are bigger. And yeah, like I say, a lot more open space, you know, nature, and less people. And so you'll see a lot more natural habitation, you know, wild animals and things like that. Hunting is great. Canada, a lot of Americans come to Canada, especially Alberta, for hunting. I think Joe Rogan comes up here once a year to northern Alberta, comes through Edmonton. I think he stops here to restaurants. He's done like comedy shows here before, but yeah, it's kind of a cool place. You know, it's not, you know, like the rapid immigration and demographic change is something that makes me a little bit nervous. But then again, you know, I don't judge people just based on what their skin color is. I'm about character and behavior. Are you trying to become part of a culture and be Canadian. And unfortunately now, like, I don't know like what Canada is. Like, is it even a country? It's almost like not even a country. It's changed so much. It's almost like this large hotel that people come stay at. It's not a country. It's more of like an international zone where people from all over the world seek refuge, and they just take part in their regular stuff but don't take part in, I guess, being Canadian and adapting to the culture. And I don't even know what Canadian culture is other than hockey and different, I guess, activities that are been traditionally more Canadian. But I don't know. I mean, you walk around most shopping malls or most big cities and most people aren't even speaking English, and I thought English was the official language, and French. French is another language of Canada, but here in Western Canada it's not a French area. So the lack of English speaking is a little bit alarming. But that's one of the things we're adapting to. And like I say, I like to give everybody a chance and not, judge them, and realize that they're escaping a much worse situation. If I had the choice, I mean, I would rather be homeless here in Canada rather than live in a hut in South Sudan or Liberia or something like that. Like, that's how bad it would be and how good it is compared to here. You could find a shelter, you could find people and places here, resources, even as a homeless person. So yeah, Canada is not a bad place. It's not a perfect place. It's going a little bit sideways, but that can always be turned around. And just do our best and stay vigilant, stay active in our communities, try to be friendly to one another, help each other out, make the overall experience for the other people around you better, and that will increase the morale of the place. And we can all move upward and onward and go from there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, my perspective on being a Canadian and living in Canada. I will now just go for a little bit of a drive, just a couple minutes. I'll show you a little bit of the route I'm taking on this particular day to get to my side of town. So just hang on tight for a couple minutes and stay with me. Here we go. Sorry about that crack in the windshield. I would get it fixed, but it's not worth it because it's not in my line of sight. And it's not yet expanded or gotten worse. I may get it fixed next year. Hopefully it lasts through the winter. So yeah, this is Canada we're driving through. Somewhat central here, south central, the hood. This is what Canada's south central looks like. This definitely ain't Compton, California. Just got off work a little bit earlier today, finished my last job. Fixed up some doors. Actually, there's this one customer had some window bars that were locked and had to get them open for the painters. I could see the train on the right hand side. That's our LRT, public transit system. We're now descending from high elevation, going down into the valley of central Edmonton. Street racing with this train. I'm winning. Stupid construction barricades. One thing about Canada, especially this fucking town, is like in the summer, you know, if you ever plan to move here or visit here, get ready for some construction, man. Because we don't do a lot of it in the winter, it's just too cold. So in the summer, it's rampant, and it's crazy like how much they do. It's like half the roads have lane closures, and it sucks, man, but at least the weather is good, right? I'm just gonna be going more into the downtown area here. Another difference, though, I've noticed my travels in the US and Canada is, you know, I mentioned like safety and crime. It's like when, especially big cities in the US, like just walking through San Francisco and LA, and where else was I? Like Seattle. Notice like there's a lot more gates, like iron gates and bars on windows and roll shutters. And in Canada, there's hardly any. Like, I'd say 90% of the storefronts in like the whole city and suburbs don't have any extra layers of protection. You hardly see any bars on windows or roll shutters. We do have a couple of rough areas, and you know, you even don't see bars on those. Those are like mostly roll shutters. So it's very rare here. But in the States, everything's got iron bars. In the cities, you know, I don't know the suburbs that much from what I've seen from videos and the little traveling I have done in the suburbs of the States. It's kind of the same. A lot of the windows are just exposed, and it's newer strip malls and stuff where the storefronts are just normal like they are here. They all kind of look the same. It's almost like they're built by the same people. Whoever builds the American strip malls builds the Canadian ones too. But yeah, I just noticed that's kind of a different thing. There's a lot more security bars, and it just looks a little rougher around the edges in America. And we seem to have like stricter regulations for how the signage looks, and you know, how well kept the facades of the buildings are. In the US, man, it was just like, especially San Francisco and LA and stuff, it was just rough looking, man. It's like just so unkept and just dirty and homeless and graffiti. We have a lot of like graffiti cleanup programs here. If you see graffiti here, it doesn't last very long. They usually cleans up pretty well. If you go in some of like the hidden areas, like behind bridges and stuff like that, you will see, or in tunnels, you will see graffiti that they're not in a rush to clean up. But for the most part, things in Canada are generally a bit cleaner when it comes to that. It's not like dilapidated buildings and housing. Like I like to watch a lot of the videos on that, like the driving tours through cities. Like this one guy I watched the other day, he went through like Philadelphia and Baltimore, and I was like, oh my god, it looks like a war zone. Everything's roll shuttered up. There's like bullet holes and just broken glass just on the sidewalk that's probably been there for weeks. You just don't see that here. Even though we do have our crackheads and mental patients running around. If something does happen, it does get fixed pretty quickly. Like you'll see a storefront with a broken glass and they'll board it up. And then you'll drive by a week later and there's glass already been replaced. That's kind of one of the nice things about Canada, is that take the good with the bad. You know, you've got the people that are talking loud in public on speakerphone in some language you don't understand, and that annoys the shit out of you. But then again, the buildings are at least fairly well maintained, and the vast majority of people are not dickheads, and they're not out to cause you harm. It's important to get that kind of perspective and try to improve, or hope that certain things improve. We'll just see where it goes. You know, voting for people that are going to change things, or that's another way to get active and make Canada into the place you want it to be, rather than the direction it's going. We are on 109 Street is where this is at. Yeah, still a ways from home, maybe another 10 minutes driving. Traffic picking up here. So yeah, you could see all these like storefronts here. Now this is like downtown, and as you could see, like it's all glass. It's all pretty clean. There's no shutters or bars. There's nothing broken. There's a guy doing his Grubhub delivery. There's a white dude with a Notorious B.I.G. shirt that just jaywalked across the street. So interesting place. And you see that like white building up ahead, that's a little bit of a taller high-rise. That's actually an apartment building, and that business on the ground floor is called Cannabis House. That's another cannabis retailer, and there's just tons of them, and they all have like their own names and stuff, and they each have their own kind of unique products. You can get all your vapes and bongs, glass pipes and all that. You can get all that stuff here. It's all legal to buy. Yeah, they're just everywhere. There's a couple of pubs to the right. People getting towed. Nice to see the tow trucks are doing their job. There's a Dave's Hot Chicken restaurant right there. That just opened a while ago. Actually, they were locked out of their bathroom, and I had to break in and fix the lock. Well, this is the longest video I've ever done now, officially. If you're still with me, congratulations. Thank you for your patience. And I don't know how long I'm stuck here. Anyways, don't want to let it go too long. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you understand my perspective, again, these are just my opinions on what it means to live in Canada and what it's really like. You might have a different experience. Maybe you're on the whole other side of the country and I don't know what's happening there. So let me know if you're Canadian, what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Do you want to get the hell out of this place? Or are you interested in moving here? It is a great place. Maybe you don't like where you're at. Maybe you're in Australia and you think it sucks, or you're in the UK and that's not a place you want to be anymore, you want to escape, Canada might be an option for you. Look into it, do a lot of research, not just this video. This is just one tiny area and one tiny guy, one small voice. And I'm just here to share and entertain as best I can. I will make a left turn here. Good night, all. God bless you. Peace. Denny saying goodbye.